I collect them. They're 50s and 60s vintage guitars.
Tom Petty wasn't famous for being a guitar hero in the traditional sense. He was known as the songwriter, the voice, and the recognizable face of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. However, beneath those timeless songs that everyone loved was a genuine and deep appreciation for guitar playing. Petty truly understood great guitar work when he heard it, and he approached learning about the instrument like a dedicated student studying the masters. Recently, stories have surfaced about the 10 guitarists that Petty admired most throughout his life. These weren't just random choices or casual preferences. These were the musicians who fundamentally shaped his sound, inspired his music, and, according to some accounts, occupied his thoughts constantly. According to various sources, Petty's admiration for these guitar legends apparently came with complications. Reports have suggested that feelings of jealousy, insecurity, and competition existed beneath the surface of his respect. His list of favorite guitarists spans from blues pioneers to rock gods, and it reveals someone who reportedly struggled with his own perceived limitations as a player. Some accounts claim that his deep respect for guitar greatness sometimes transformed into personal difficulty. The story of each guitarist on his list comes with its own reported drama and emotional complexity. Starting with Duane Allman, Tom Petty loved the way Allman played slide guitar as if it were pure magic. The way Allman made his guitar cry and sing on tracks like Laylo was something that Petty studied intensively for years. The Allman Brothers Band demonstrated to the world what Southern rock could truly become, and Petty absorbed every musical note. He mentioned Allman in various interviews as one of the most soulful players ever to pick up a guitar. However, that admiration reportedly came with deep feelings of insecurity. Sources have claimed that Petty felt like an amateur when he compared himself to Allman's virtuoso slide guitar work. Reports suggest that he actively avoided jamming with slide guitar players because doing so made him feel exposed and inadequate. Industry insiders have said that Petty once admitted he could never reach Allman's level of skill. The Southern rock connection allegedly made these feelings even worse. Petty came from Florida, which is Southern territory, but sources claimed he felt he lacked the natural authenticity that Allman possessed. He reportedly told friends that his guitar playing was basic when compared to real Southern masters. The love for Allman was genuine and profound, but allegedly, the fear of never measuring up to that blazing talent was equally strong. George Harrison held a special place in Petty's life as both a friend and musical hero. They played together in the Traveling Wilburys, creating memorable music as bandmates and brothers. Harrison's melodic approach to guitar influenced Petty's jangly sound more than almost anyone else. Petty spoke about Harrison with genuine love and respect, frequently calling him one of rock's most underrated guitarists. However, even friendship apparently couldn't eliminate certain tensions. Sources claim that Petty felt overshadowed by Harrison even when they were supposed to be equals in the Wilburys. Reports suggest he resented how Harrison's status as a Beatle made everything he touched automatically legendary. Industry insiders say that Petty wanted the same kind of reverence, but knew he would never escape Harrison's massive shadow. At recording sessions, the dynamic was reportedly tense beneath the smiles. Sources claim that Petty pushed for more prominent guitar parts, essentially competing with Harrison's contributions. Others say he made comments about wanting recognition beyond just being known as George's friend. The friendship was genuine and beautiful without any doubt, but allegedly, Petty's ego couldn't fully accept being the sidekick to a Beatle, even one he truly loved. Keith Richards was the rhythm guitar master that Tom Petty deeply admired. Those chunky, timeless riffs from songs like Satisfaction and Brown Sugar built the very foundation of rock and roll. Petty studied Richards obsessively, trying to capture that same groove and swagger in his own playing. The Heartbreakers sound owed enormous debts to the Rolling Stones approach, and Petty never denied this influence. However, that influence allegedly became something of a curse. Sources claim that Petty grew tired of critics constantly calling him a Richards copycat. Every review seemed to mention the Stones, and every journalist asked if he was just doing what Keith had already done better. Reports suggest this comparison drove Petty crazy throughout his entire career. In private, the frustration allegedly reached boiling points. Industry insiders say that Petty made defensive comments about his originality, insisting that his riffs were different from Richards' work. Sources claim he told bandmates he was sick of living in the Stones' shadow. Others report he called critics lazy for making the constant comparisons. Publicly, Petty praised Richards endlessly and genuinely, but allegedly, in private, he resented being seen as just another Richards clone trying to capture lightning in a bottle. Jeff Beck represented everything that Tom Petty could never be on guitar, at least in terms of technical ability. Beck's technical brilliance, his innovation, and his ability to make the instrument speak in completely new ways was almost superhuman. Petty watched Beck's performances with jaw-dropping awe. He called Beck one of the greatest guitarists to ever live, someone who redefined what was possible with 6 strings. However, that awe allegedly came with crushing feelings of inadequacy. Sources claim that Petty felt completely outclassed whenever Beck's name came up in conversation. Reports suggest he avoided events where virtuoso guitarists gathered because he felt exposed as a limited player. Industry insiders say that Petty once admitted he couldn't play even 10% of what Beck could accomplish. The defense mechanism allegedly kicked in hard. Sources claim that Petty dismissed technical playing as mere showboating that missed the soul of music. He reportedly told friends that songwriting mattered more than guitar wizardry. Others say he made comments about Beck being impressive but not particularly emotional. The admiration was absolutely genuine without question, but allegedly, Petty protected his ego by devaluing the very skills he secretly wished he possessed and knew he never would develop. Scotty Moore represented Tom Petty's connection to rock and roll's birth. Moore's pioneering guitar work behind Elvis Presley created the blueprint for everything that followed in rock music. Those clean, country-tinged rockabilly licks on songs like That's All Right and Mystery Train showed the world what rock guitar could be. Petty studied Moore's economy and taste with deep respect. However, Moore's story allegedly terrified Petty on a personal level. Sources claim that Petty obsessed over how Moore never received proper recognition despite essentially creating the rock guitar language. Reports suggest that Petty identified deeply with underappreciated musicians who lived in the shadows of the stars they helped create. Industry insiders say he feared ending up forgotten like session players who made other people famous.
Jimi Hendrix existed in a different universe entirely when it came to guitar playing. Tom Petty didn't just respect Hendrix, he stood in complete awe, like everyone else who heard him play. Hendrix changed everything about rock guitar forever with his revolutionary approach to the instrument. Petty said that Hendrix was simply beyond comparison, a once-and-forever genius who rewrote all the rules of what guitar could be. However, Hendrix's genius allegedly paralyzed Petty as a player. Sources claim that Petty never even attempted Hendrix-style playing because the gap in ability was too enormous to bridge. Reports suggest he felt relieved that Hendrix existed in a completely separate category. Industry insiders say that Petty told friends that competing with Hendrix was like competing with gravity itself, completely pointless to even try. Chuck Berry invented the very language that Tom Petty spoke musically. Those foundational riffs, that signature duck walk, and the perfect marriage of rhythm and blues with country twang created rock and roll itself. Petty studied Berry's playing like sacred religious texts. He called Berry the most important guitarist in rock history, the man who wrote the rule book that everyone else followed. However, capturing Berry's magic proved impossible, according to reports. Sources claim that Petty practiced Berry's licks for years, desperately trying to unlock the secret of his sound. Reports suggest frustration mounted as he realized Berry's genius was effortless and natural, not something that could be learned. Industry insiders say that Petty told bandmates he could copy the notes, but never capture the raw power and swing that Berry possessed. The obsession allegedly turned bitter over time. Sources claim that Petty resented how easy Berry made it look while he struggled. He reportedly said that Berry was a natural genius while he was just a hard worker. Others say that Petty felt cursed to understand greatness but remain unable to achieve it himself. The respect remained enormous and genuine throughout Petty's life, but allegedly, Chuck Berry represented an unreachable standard that haunted every riff Petty ever wrote or played. Bo Diddley created the rhythm itself that became fundamental to rock music. That primal, infectious beat became the backbone of rock and roll. Tom Petty loved Diddley's rhythmic innovation and raw power. He championed Diddley in interviews, calling him one of rock's most underrated and underappreciated pioneers. Petty made sure people knew about his importance to everything that came after him. The parallel to his own career allegedly consumed him emotionally. Sources claim that Petty worried constantly about being forgotten the way Diddley was for decades. He reportedly told friends that history remembers the flashy players and forgets the foundational innovators who made everything possible. Others say that Petty made Diddley's cause his own mission, partly to validate his own importance in rock history. The admiration was deep and sincere. Absolutely no question about that. However, Bo Diddley's underappreciation allegedly terrified Tom Petty because he feared suffering the exact same fate in rock history. Finally, Roger McGuinn was Tom Petty's #1 guitar inspiration above all others. That 12-string Rickenbacker sound on the Byrds' classic songs created the jangly template that defined an entire era. Petty built his entire career on McGuinn's chiming folk rock guitar work, which gave Petty his musical identity. They became friends, and Petty praised McGuinn endlessly as the true originator of the sound that everyone copied afterward. However, that influence was allegedly Petty's greatest burden to carry. Sources claim he felt like he was just copying what McGuinn had already perfected years earlier. Reports suggest critics calling him derivative cut deeper than any other insult he received. Industry insiders say that Petty struggled his entire career with accusations that he wasn't original, just a McGuinn imitator. In private moments, the insecurity allegedly overwhelmed him completely. Sources claim that Petty admitted to close friends that McGuinn did it first and did it better. He reportedly said he spent decades trying to escape McGuinn's shadow, but never could manage it. Others say that Petty confessed that every jangly Heartbreakers song was essentially a tribute to the Byrds. The friendship was genuine and the respect was infinite and real. However, McGuinn allegedly represented Tom Petty's original sin in music, the proof that everything he built stood on someone else's foundation. These 10 guitarists shaped Tom Petty's musical life in profound ways, but the relationships were apparently complex and filled with emotional difficulty. The admiration was always genuine, but according to these reports, it came with personal costs in terms of confidence and peace of mind.